Two guys, two different opinions, one very low price.
It's free!
Welcome to the Cerebral Sessions.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope your week's going well. Hope you're happy and healthy and holding strong. This is Colt coming at you with another episode of the Cerebral Sessions, which is my little extension off of the Cerebral Entertainment Podcast, where I bring you my thoughts and opinions on whatever topics I want to cover. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. So first order of business, drum roll please. Our website's finally up and rolling. It's not exactly how we want it yet, but we're definitely headed in the right direction. So if you got time, go check us out at the cepodcast.com. That is THECEPODCAST.com. We're not up on iTunes quite yet, but as soon as we get the RSS feed up and going, we'll be ready to rock, and we'll have just one more avenue where you guys can reach us. We've discussed it, and I don't know for sure that we're going to keep using YouTube as a source for putting out our podcast once we get on iTunes, but we'll see. iTunes is just a more convenient platform for people to get the audio version, which I think that's where most people listen anyways. Between that and maybe like Stitcher, and you got your different platforms for whether it be Apple or whether it be Android or whatever. We might utilize YouTube in the future once we upgrade to doing like video podcasts and stuff like that, but that's going to be quite a ways down the road, so nothing we're, too worried about at the moment. The second thing that I wanted to get to was I totally dropped the ball a couple weeks ago, and I never mentioned that Charlie Murphy had passed away. So I just wanted to say rest in peace to Charlie Murphy. He passed away on April 12th, and I just totally didn't mention it. For those of you that don't know who Charlie Murphy is, he's the older brother of Eddie Murphy, and he was most known for his sketches in like Chappelle Show, and he was a stand-up comic and stuff like that. But I was listening to Bill Burr's podcast earlier today, and he said that he went to the funeral himself, and he said that a guy can't be laid to rest much better than they did for him. So, like I said, I just wanted to cast out there a rest in peace for Charlie Murphy. So, on a lighter note, let's get to some podcasting. So, I'm recording right now at about, my computer says 2:05 a.m. I just got home from work and settled in. I got my trusty sidekick here with me, my English Bulldog Juice. You'll probably be able to hear him snoring here shortly. He's normally doesn't take very long for him to be cuddled up on the couch and out like a light. So anyway, speaking of work, something kind of funny. I was joking around with a buddy of mine from work earlier about how we've been on overtime for the past few months. Nothing major, but like 45 hours, 48 hours, something like that. But the way my work's set up is if we're on 40 hours, my shift, I'll work like 3:30 in the evening till 1 o'clock in the morning. But if they work us on overtime, basically all we do is we work one more hour in the night. So if my normal shift on 40 hours is 3:30 to 1, then if we're on overtime, I'm going to work 3:30 to 2 instead. No big deal. But we were joking around and talking about how when they drop us back to 40 hours, it's crazy because it feels like the night goes by so much faster. And it feels like you can just get like so much more done outside of work in that 1 hour. I don't know why. It just kind of feels weird to me. But anyways, speaking of work, I wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Stephen Ogden of Clinical Muscle over on the Advices Radio Network that's ran by Scott McNally. You might recognize Dr. Stephen Ogden from some pictures that I had posted from the Arnold Classic earlier last month up in Columbus, Ohio. We posted pictures on our YouTube and our Facebook page and stuff like that, and Instagram from that trip. But anyways, he had mentioned in their most recent podcast of Clinical Muscle that he was stepping down from his position at his job. He had mentioned that he doesn't get any more pay to deal with all the stress, and his job is bleeding into his home life too much, so it's time to step away. So my question to you is, have you ever had a situation where something you're struggling with in life, whatever it is, and it's not necessarily something that needs to be changed like right this second, but it's almost like you're just waiting for that something just to pop out at you and give you the answer to what you need to do. That's kind of where I've been sitting at lately. Nothing I'm going to get into, but just something I've been struggling with lately. I've always, I guess it's like one of those situations. So say like you go and you eat Chinese food and you open up that fortune cookie, and that fortune cookie tells you, some kind of fortune, but it's just one of those things that like all of a sudden pops in your head like, holy cow, that's the answer. That's what I need to do. Well, Stephen Ogden is my fortune cookie in this situation. Okay, so something I've been struggling with. He kind of, with him expressing his story, he kind of pushed me in the right direction on where I need to be. So I had messaged him and kind of told him how his story had impacted me, and what the reasons were and all that kind of stuff. And it just goes to show that you don't ever know who you're impacting and why you're impacting people and things like that too. So you kind of always got to be mindful about that kind of stuff. So another interesting story, or at least to me it is. So over the past month or so, I've had some tendonitis in my right knee and that's kind of made training legs pretty much impossible. So I've been going to my chiropractor. Well, I've had this issue in the past. Earlier last year, I had this issue too. So what I did was I went to my chiropractor, Dr. Jeff Huck, which we had on the podcast a couple of months ago, where we had the brew day and also talked about chiropractic and things like that also. Well, anyways, so I went to him last year and for the same issue, and he brought me in and wheeled up this machine and put some BioFreeze on the end of this handheld deal, and started rubbing around my knee and stuff. And it was an ultrasound machine where it was supposed to open up the blood vessels in that area so more blood can come in to repair and things like that. So after a few sessions and icing my knee by myself and stuff, it was all good. Everything was, healed, and I did, pretty well. Well, a little over a month ago or so, I guess pushed myself a little bit too hard, and I could feel it. I could feel it the minute that it happened, like I was on leg press, and the minute that my knee just like inflamed really bad, and I had to, lock the weight and, get off of there. So anyways, I talked to him ahead of time before I went in there, and he told me, he's like, I need to get you in there so we can laser your knee. And so what I thought he was going to do was the same thing that he did last year for me. No big deal. So I go in there, I sit down, and he wheels this little machine over and starts running this handheld deal over my knee, kind of the same way as the last one, except for this one he didn't pour any BioFreeze on it or anything like that. All it was just shining this red light out of it. So he's like, it starts beeping, and he's just running over my knee, and I'm like, what you doing? Because it was kind of weird to me. Like, I hadn't seen this before. I didn't know what the heck he was doing. He told me he was using an infrared light, and it reduces inflammation in a certain area instantly. And by reacting to mitochondria or something, it was way more biological than I know to explain to you or anything. But it was crazy to me because it was just a light. So he puts this light on my knee, and he's like moving it around my knee, and it starts beeping and to where it knows where the most inflammation's at, and that's where it targets. I don't feel it at all or anything like that. It knows where the inflammation's at, it targets it, and it reduces the inflammation, which is crazy. And he had even mentioned that he's got a portable one too, and he's a team physician for a local school football team, and he said that a lot of times if he takes that to a football game with him, that if one of the players comes over with like a rolled ankle or a sprained ankle or something like that, a lot of times he can just use his machine and put it on their ankle, and he'll probably more than likely have them back in the game before the end of the game, which is absolutely crazy. So I looked this up on cpsnovi.com. That's cpsnovi.com, and it states the following. It says therapeutic effects of laser treatment. During each painless treatment, laser energy increases circulation, drawing water, oxygen, and nutrients to the damaged area. This creates an optimal healing environment that reduces inflammation, swelling, muscle spasms, stiffness, and pain. As the injured area returns to normal, function is restored and pain is relieved. The cellular effects of laser therapy. During laser therapy, the infrared laser light interacts with tissues at the cellular level, and metabolic activity increases within the cell, improving the transport of nutrients across the cell membrane. This initiates the production of cellular energy, which leads to a cascade of beneficial effects, increasing cellular function and health. Patient benefits of laser therapy. Laser therapy is proven to stimulate tissue repair and growth. The laser accelerates the healing process and decreases inflammation, pain, and scar tissue formation. In the management of chronic pain, MLS laser therapy can provide dramatic results. Now tell me how crazy that is. This is literally a light, okay? And he also had mentioned that, I think he said it's a blue light that the same machine can use, that they can use on like skin conditions and stuff like that. So people that have like psoriasis or really bad eczema and stuff like that, they can reduce the inflammation on the skin and they can clear it up pretty intensely and pretty fast. So I thought that was pretty insane. So anyway, speaking of my knee, Sunday was the first good leg day I've had in the gym since I was cleared to lift with legs. So my knee felt pretty good. Once I got in some like leg extensions, light stuff to get some blood flowing into that area. So on top of this, I've had this issue with my hamstring on the same leg where it's tightening up really bad right where my hamstring meets with my glute. So I've tried stretching. It only helps for a short amount of time. So instead of paying to have like a deep tissue massage or anything like that, I just had my wife buy me a foam roll when she went grocery shopping. So she buys it, she brings it home, and I sit it on the floor, and I start rolling back and forth on this thing with my hamstring. And apparently it was not my day, because since we had done legs earlier that day, while I'm sitting here on this foam roll and I'm rolling back and forth, I'm having to use my left leg to kind of hold myself up on this roller. So now I'm using the foam roller on my right leg to trying to roll this muscle out, and now my left hamstring's cramping up. So for the next hour I'm on the floor fighting my hamstrings back and forth, rolling one out while the other cramps up, and then switching and then rolling the other one out while the other one cramps up. Was not fun whatsoever. But I digress. So as usual, I do have a few topics I want to cover that I feel are important for people to at least think about. And if not, that's fine too. But if you don't want to think critically, then this is probably the wrong podcast for you. So, first topic I want to hit on today is expectations of those around you. For those of you that listened to the last episode of the CEP, we got into this topic just a little bit, but I feel like we only scratched the surface. This world is so diverse and made up of so many diverse people. Big, small, short, tall, rich, poor, white, black, outgoing, antisocial, etc. The list goes on. Seems to me that one of the hardest things to do is not put a label or an expectation on someone based on what you want them to be. We all know what assuming does, right? The whole ass out of you and me thing. Well, whether we want to admit it or not, we all stereotype people. I think it's ingrained in us, and a lot of these stereotypes come from the way we're raised or certain situations we were put in with certain types of people. For instance, say a rich person's an asshole to you. You may associate rich people with being assholes, right? That's a stereotype that you place that person into. Well, the same is to be said with expectations. Let's, for example, take my hobby, okay? Lifting weights. If I get in the gym with somebody and I have high expectations of them from the get-go to keep up with me, to lift heavy and whatnot, but they disappoint me, all right? I have a couple options on how to treat this situation. I can either keep that expectation in my mind of them where I had high hopes for a great workout with them and they just didn't cut it and I never lift with them again, or I can decide to lift with them a lot more and try to bring their focus and motivation and strength up. This is a completely hypothetical situation. I'm just throwing that out there. But anyways, the same kind of thing goes for, say, like a manager at a company, okay? If you place high expectations on an employee right off the bat and they don't come through, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad employee. It may mean that you have placed a burden on yourself by placing a burden on them to be everything that you want them to be right off the bat. As I've said before, everyone's raised differently and goes through different struggles throughout their life that shape their personality, their work ethic, their overall approach to life. It should be our goal to try to find the strengths in others and find our own strengths and work on those instead of focusing on the downfalls or placing too high of expectations on people for our own gain. Something I used to struggle with hardcore is the possibility of being wrong. I know people, and I'm good friends with people, who will fight you to the death, even if they're proven wrong or can't back up their statements. I don't know if it's a matter of pride to go down fighting or what. Regardless of if you're wrong, I'm not sure. But I also know people who will get so set into an idea in their head that they refuse to think that there are any other possibilities, or that there can be more than one answer to the same question. I used to be this way. I still can be sometimes, but I've slowly worked on it, and I've gotten to a place now where I try my hardest to at least see both sides, both views. Now, don't get me wrong, if I still believe I'm right after you give me your spiel and I have some evidence to back up my view, then damn right I'm going to throw it right back at you. But I feel like I'm better about it now. But listen, this should come with the territory of being an adult. And I want to put out a podcast at some point just titled Adulting. And I could go with so many directions with that. I just haven't been able to put everything together into words that I really want to put out there yet, so I'm working on that, but be expecting that soon. But listen, okay, whether you want to believe in a God or not, whether you want to believe that your religion's better than another, or whether you want to believe in a flat earth, or that there were no dinosaurs, or that we didn't land on the moon, or whatever the case may be, that's your right to believe what you want to believe. It's not my right to tell you that you have to believe in what I believe. But I should be able to accept your opinions even if they don't make sense to me, right? And now, don't get me wrong. There's some crazies out there. There are for sure some crazies out there that don't make sense whatsoever. But for the most part, we should be able to accept ideas that don't match our own. There's millions and millions and millions of people on this earth. And I think that you're going to find anyone close to you, in the same vicinity as you, in the same town as you, in the same city as you, same state as you, whatever. To think that you're going to find anyone close to you that's going to have the exact same opinions is preposterous. But here's the deal. Along with forming your own opinions, you should be making sure that those opinions are coming from a credible source. You shouldn't be just listening to one news channel and automatically thinking the information you're getting is legit. You have to realize that there are people out there who are being paid to put out fake news, so everything you hear you have to take with a grain of salt until you have done your homework on the subject. So, with no segue, I'm going to move into another topic. I know this podcast is kind of a little all over the place, but it's kind of been a smooth week. I've had a lot of podcasts to listen to and a lot of topics that have come up, and I'm just kind of, just transitioning from one to the other. So bear with me. So I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, and we've actually used Gary Vaynerchuk's podcast, the Gary V podcast, on a previous podcast review that we've done. So anyways, Gary Vaynerchuk was on the MFCEO podcast. That stands for the Mother Effin' CEO podcast with Andy Frisella. They were talking about entrepreneurship. But with this, they were talking about how everything you say and do is your brand. So putting entrepreneurship aside, I just want to take a minute to talk about your brand. If you think about everything you say and do as your brand, does that change your outlook? If you think about every Facebook status you post, every conversation that you have, every meal that you eat, every activity that you do, those things are representing your brand. Your brand is what you promote to other people, the vibes you give off. If I'm on Facebook starting drama, that's negatively promoting my brand. If I'm going to the track and exercising, I am positively promoting my brand. We should all strive to be good people, but we should also show that by always trying to promote ourselves in the best way possible. I don't mean we should always care what others think, but we should at least be mindful of those around and what our actions are. You never know what kind of scenario you may end up in the future with those other people. So let me share this with you. It's kind of long, so bear with me because I think it has some good points, and it should help tie everything that I've talked about so far together. So as I said, bear with me here, okay? So this is from EliteDaily.com, and it's titled, "You Are Your Own Brand, Why It's Important to Create Your Own Image." Carrie Schreiber writes on March 21st, 2014, "As many juniors know, the job search isn't the easiest feat to accomplish. We may feel as though we are simply just pawns in an older generation's game of chess. But what we must learn is that it is truly about how to play the game. Life is a business, and you are your own CEO. Learn to create a strategic plan for yourself and be the one to implement it. Being able to control your own fate will ultimately lead you to what you want. Here are some things to realize and ways that you can market yourself to others. You are your own brand. Just like Victoria's Secret sells underwear and Best Buy sells electronics, you sell something that is unique. You. This includes your identity, personality, work ethic, goals, aspirations, fears, and more. Think of yourself as a brand, as your own public relations, sales, and marketing department all in one. You know how to sell the best version of yourself and position your image that will be favorable to all. Identify with something. Almost like the above statement, Victoria's Secret is branded as a purveyor of underwear and lingerie, and that is how we identify it. By connecting yourself with an instrument, a sport, an academic activity, or a job, we allow others to quickly understand us at face value before getting in depth about who we actually are. Stand out from the crowd. Our differences are what make us unique. Nobody wants to watch the same boring movie repeatedly, and there's nothing more mundane than someone who only follows trends and fads. Eventually, those fads will die down and something else will become the new attraction. Be that attraction and be different from your friends and neighbors. Embrace the fact that you are fluent in another language and that you love to cook. Just because nobody else is doing it doesn't mean that it isn't relevant. These type of identities are what form stereotypes, which can communicate who we are based on with what we associate. Stereotypes make us relatable and, like a perfect movie script formula, easy to follow. Embrace knowledge. One of the most beautiful discoveries is being able to understand knowledge and apply it critically in our everyday lives. As human beings, we'll never know all that the world and that this life can offer, so we might as well continue trying to figure it out. Don't stop reading and don't stop asking questions. With these two basic elementary forms of learning, we can embrace the world around us with an open mind. Knowledge opens us up to possibilities, and you will learn to realize that these possibilities that once seemed so far away are actually attainable and endless. So, there's a few more on here. I could read them, but I'm not really interested in the rest of them for right now. But what I do want to say is this. Do something you never would have imagined doing and get out of your comfort zone. Once you're comfortable being uncomfortable, great things will be accomplished. So what do you take from this? Do you ever think ahead to how your current actions might affect your future? Do you ever think that the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you act, do you ever think that any of that is a way of selling yourself to others? Do you find yourself changing your personality to please others? Or do you know others who sell themselves differently to different crowds? I personally think that we all fall victim to bad branding. We all end up in situations that we aren't necessarily proud of. But that's all part of life. But to take a term from Andy Frisella, or at least that's where I heard it, we should always be using aggressive patience, which basically means you're not going to get everything you want tomorrow. You have to have patience and enjoy the process, but you have to be busting your ass through that process to make sure you get the reward you're looking for. Life gives very few handouts, and when it does, you don't embrace it and aren't as proud of it as you would be if you had busted your ass to earn it. Always keep your eyes on what's ahead, but don't forget to look at the scenery along the way. And I'm going to end this podcast with one more final thought, okay? When you get old and you look at what you have, you're not going to be proud of what you have. You're going to be proud of how you earned it. What you have in the long run is not important. It's how you got it. What you did to get where you are, what you did to get what you have. Okay? So I'm going to leave you with that. I want to thank you guys for listening to me ramble on for another episode of the Cerebral Sessions. I want you guys to remember to keep your brains warm out there and always be thinking outside the box. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just want to shout out on the show, hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter. We are very accessible, and remember, the best way for us to grow our show is you guys. Your word of mouth can spread like wildfire, and that's what we want. We feel like we're spreading good knowledge out there and hope you feel the same. So thank you guys, and I will catch you next time.
If there was any way